This video is to help you learn about the measures of central tendency and the measure of variability. So you want to have this worksheet that I have on the screen printed out, or you can just take notes on a separate blank sheet of paper. Either way is fine. First of all, the measures of central tendency are the values that represent the center of a set of data. Those are the measures of central tendencies, and they include mean, median, and mode. Okay, so let's take a look first at mean. Mean is the average value in a set of data. Okay, and in order to find the mean or the average, you take the sum of all the data and divide that by the number of data values. So let's take a look at an example. So we have all these t-shirts here, and they're selling for different amounts of money. So we're going to find the mean of the t-shirts, all right? So we need to add up all these values. We have 450, 7, 8, 8, 4, 9.99, 650, $9, $9.99, and $28. So we're going to add those numbers up, and you may use a calculator for this. You don't have to add these by hand. So if you want to pause the video and add them up, we end up getting $94.98 when we add those values up. So $94.98. Okay, and then we have 10 values of data. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's our number of pieces of data. So we need to divide 94.98 by 10. So when we divide that by 10, we end up with, I'll erase this so I have some room here. We end up with 9,498. All right, but we are talking money here. So if we wanted to give our final answer of what the average price of all the t-shirts was, we would need to round this to the nearest hundredth or the nearest penny. So we would look at this 8 and then round up the number next to it. So the average would be $9.50. So one thing to keep in mind is that we have what's called an outlier. Let me fill that in here. An outlier is a piece of data or a number in the set of data that can skew or make the information lean one way or the other. So if we looked at all of these pieces of data that we had here and we said which one of these could be considered an outlier, I think you would agree that 28 is definitely an outlier because this number is way higher than all of the other numbers on our list. So $28 is the outlier in our list of data points here. So that 28 may make our average seem a lot higher than what it would if it wasn't there at all, or if it was a number that was closer to these other numbers. All right, so that's how we find the mean. So mean is average. So let's talk about now how to find the median. So the median is the middle number. All right, so if there are, in order to find the middle number, you need to put the values in order from least to greatest, and then find the center. Okay, so all right, so I erased all the pieces of data we had before, and now I'm going to show you how to find the median, or the middle value. So if we take all the prices of the t-shirts and we put them in order from least to greatest, we have 4, 4.5, 6.5, and ideally you would list these all in one single line. It's much easier to find the median when the numbers are in one long line. Okay, so here I've listed all the values in order, and now I want to find the middle number. So what I want to do is I would normally take my fingers and put them at each end of the data. So I would put a finger here and a finger here, and then move them in one at a time in order to find the center. So you can't see me doing that on this video, so I'm going to kind of do it with my pen. So here's one on one end, here's the other, here's one, moving in one at a time until I find the middle number. Well, we have two middle numbers here, but also keep in mind that because these are both 8, it's very easy to figure out which one's the middle number, and that is the number 8. Now, this is a great way to find the measure of central tendency if you have an outlier. We have this 28 that's kind of making our average seem higher than it should. In a situation like this where we do have an outlier, the middle number or the median is probably the best way to go to find a measure of central tendency. Now, if you have two numbers in the middle, like we had here, what you want to do is find the mean of these two numbers, or the average. If our two numbers were something like 7 and 9, we would take the average of 7 and 9, and we would find that mean, the median would be 8. So if there's not one specific middle number right there, then we would add these two numbers together, divide by 2, and find the answer that way. All right, let's take a look at our next measure of central tendency, which is mode, this one down here. So mode is the number that's appearing the most. And I remember these in this way. Mean is average, median is middle, and most is most often. Mode, M-O, is most often. Mode, most often, okay? So how do we find the mode for our set of data here? All you have to do is count. This is the easiest one to find. Count however many has the most. So in our situation, we have 1 4, we have 1 4.5, we have 1 6.5, we have 1 7, we have 2 8s, we have 1 9, we have 2 999s, and we have 28. So our most often seen piece of data is 8 and 999. So you can have one mode, you can have more than one mode, than one, Or you can have no modes. If your data was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these all appear exactly the same. So in this set of data, we don't have a mode because they're all appearing exactly the same amount of times. All right, last but not least, let's talk about range. Now, range is not a measure of central tendency, but it is a measure of variability, and it's a great thing to know how to do. So a range measures the span of the data set. So in order to find the span of the data set, we take the greatest value in the data. Whoops, I can't spell greatest. And we subtract it from the least value. All right, and that will give us our range. So in our set of data over here that we've been working with, we've got our biggest number is 28. And our smallest number, our least number, is 4. And we just subtract those two numbers. And our range is 24. All right, so keep in mind that range is not a measure of central tendency since it doesn't measure the center of the data, but it is a good piece of information because we can learn more about the measures of central tendency when we know the range. Okay. One other thing to note, and I forgot to mention this over here, mode is best used when you have non-numeric data. So if you're talking about favorite ice cream flavors, probably mode would be a great way to talk about the measure of central tendency because you can say, oh, most people picked chocolate as their favorite flavor of ice cream. So mode or most often would be a great way to talk about the central tendency of non-numeric data. So that's how we measure mean, median, and mode, the measures of central tendency, and then we also talked about range. So let's do a couple examples. So I have listed some pieces of data, some numbers here on this next slide to show you how we find the mean, median, mode, and range. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is to take these numbers and put them in order from least to greatest. So let's do that now. So my smallest number is 2. So I'm going to mark it off because I've used it so that I don't get confused about that. And then I have another 2, so I'm going to mark that one off. And then I have a 3, a 5, another 5, and another 5. And I have a 6 as my biggest number. So all I've done here is rearrange those numbers. So to find the mean, we need to find the average of these numbers. So we're going to add them all together. And divide by the number of values. Okay, and you can use your calculator for this. So adding these numbers all together, 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 6 gives us 28. And then we're going to divide that by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that gives us a mean or average of 4. Next thing we're going to do is find the median. Median, if you remember, means middle number. So here's how we're going to find the middle number. I'm just going to take my fingers. You can't see me, but if you imagine, here's one of my fingers and then here's another finger. And I'm just covering up each number from each end and then moving one jump in at a time. So here's me moving in and then moving in and then moving in, and here's the middle number. Okay, so our median or middle number is 5. And then the mode is our most often, and the number that we have the most of is 5, because we have 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. And then we can also find the range, which is a measure of variability, not a measure of central tendency, but we take our biggest number, 6, and we subtract our smallest number, 2, and so our range is 4. So that's how we find that. So then I want to do another set of numbers just to show you some things that might happen. So I've got 14, 9, 20, 5, 17, and 13. Okay, so let's go ahead and put these numbers in order from smallest to biggest. 5 is our smallest number, cross that off. Then 9, cross that off. Then 13 is next. 14, 17, and 20. All right, so let's find the mean of this set of numbers. So I'm going to add these numbers up together. 5 plus 9 plus 13 plus 14 plus 17 plus 20 equals 78. And then I'm going to divide the sum of the numbers by the total amount of numbers that we have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when I plug that in my calculator, my answer is 13. So that is the mean. Then I'm going to find the median. And that's, remember, our middle number. So if I go from left and right, moving in, one at a time, I end up with this being the center of my data. So I don't have one number that is our median. So what I want to do is take the average of these two numbers. So I'm going to add 13 plus 14, which gives us 27, and then I'm going to divide that by the number of numbers there are, 2. So I'm finding the mean or the average of this number. So that gives us, 13 and a half. So that is our median, 13 and a half. Then I want to find our mode, or the number we have that appears the most often, which in this case, we don't have one. Every single number only appears once, so we do not have a mode. There is not one, and that's okay. You can have one mode, you can have 0 modes, or you can have 2 or 3 or 4 modes. It just depends on what your set of data is. And then, last but not least, let's find the range of numbers. What our range is, we're going to take our largest number, 20, subtract our smallest number, 5, and our range is 15. So that's how you find mean, median, mode, and range. So you should be able to use this information to help you with your practice homework problems.